Hello.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tate Wikuwa Book Club. Tonight, our special guest is David Hill. He's a Choctaw Indian from Oklahoma. He's worked as an AIM organizer, and he's been the Leonard Peltier Defense Committee Director 3 times. And he was the director of the Utah AIM in the 70s, and he organized the first longest walk from Utah to Marion, Illinois. He was at the BIA standoff in Cass Lake, Minnesota, and the standoff was for hunting rights for the Ojibwe. And he was at the Wounded Knee standoff, the Custer riots, and he was hospitalized defending himself against the police there. He was in the Sioux Fall riots during, and he was also injured due to police brutality, defending himself. He worked, he was a Seminole at Seminole headquarters in Oklahoma. And he was has been the organizer of the Free Leonard Peltier horse rides from Warm Spring, Oregon to DC, from New York to Atlanta when they were holding the Olympic Games, and in Oklahoma to Washington, DC, Pine Ridge to Sioux Falls to Fargo to Bismarck, and many other demonstrations. He fought for in 1980 sovereign rights before, and he worked with exclusively and extensively with Dennis Banks and Russell Means, and he was a target of COINTELPRO. And if there's probably a lot more that I'm missing, but welcome, David. It's good to have you.
Well, thank you. I wanted to correct one thing. I was the coordinator for the first longest walk from the Utah-Colorado border to Marion, Illinois. The original organizing came out of California, and Dennis got in touch with me, and they were having problems, so he asked me to go out there and help. And there were about 65 people with a lot of internal problems and external, you know. It was a long, anybody that's ever done anything like that knows what takes place. Excuse me a second, I let this baby go. She wanted to take off. Anyway, when I became the coordinator, we had about 65 people. And when we got to Marion, Illinois, we had 600. And it was kind of like the demonstrations up in North Dakota at Standing Rock. It kind of developed its own life after a while, and everybody and his brother showed up, and it was real successful. Anyway, I just wanted to correct that because there's a lot of good people that were involved in starting and facilitating the first longest walk. Dennis was working on it in California, but he couldn't leave California because he was in exile from South Dakota and charges there. And anyway, I work better if you just ask me some questions. Ask whatever you want, and I'll elaborate.
Who has a question?
Kimberly, ask him a question.
Hey,
Hey, David.
I have a question.
David, tell us about the courtroom battle.
Well, the courtroom battle was one where I was on trial for the Sioux Falls riot. And one of the days, everybody decided not to stand up because of the racist attitude of the judge and the DA. And so they ordered everybody to stand, and nobody would stand. And so then the next day, and also on that day, they carried people out bodily and set them out in the hallway. So the next day, they said only 20 people can come in. And after about 12, they noticed they were all men. And so they shut the doors and locked them. And they ordered us to stand, and they said, oh, stand for the flag and stand for the judge and stand for all. Went through a bunch of stands and nobody would stand. So then the judge slammed his papers down, went out the door behind his desk, and a 25-man riot squad from the prison came in fully with all of their equipment and stuff. And I was the first person they encountered up front because I was sitting with the attorneys. And they started shoving me with their nightsticks, and the attorneys started saying, he's a defendant, leave him alone. And I turned to see what a couple of them walked past me. And when they walked past me, I turned to look, and one of them hit me with a club, and the fight was on. And It was quite a fight. When I came, before we went over there, we knew there might be a problem. And in an extension of our decisions back during the Custer riot, before the Custer riot, we weren't going to run from them anymore. If they started a fight, we're going to fight back. And that didn't mean like squirming around to keep from being handcuffed. We were going to fight back. So we didn't run from them. We went toward them once they started something. And sometimes men would swear to fight to the death or something, you know, like that. And excuse me a second, I gotta. Anyway, she likes grandpa. Anyway, I fought until I don't know when I went down. When I came to, a woman named Sarah Badheart-Bull was laying across me screaming, "Stop, you're killing him." And I guess they were beating me and kicking me while I was unconscious. But anyway, I eventually got up and someone helped me out of the building. And that's that picture where you see Russell and another person helping me to a car. And they said a number of their officers had to go be treated too. To what extent, I don't know, but I had a broken cheekbone, broken nose, torn eyelid, ruptured eyeball inside my eyeball, and several things like that. They took me back to court on a stretcher, and then they took me loose from the trial and set another trial for another town in South Dakota. And they set Russell and I up to go on trial there. And that was for the Custer, South Dakota riots. And we were charged with riot, arson, conspiracy, and assaulting officers. And anyway, they asked me if I wanted to go on trial with Russell. And I said, no, I'm gonna go on trial by myself. And Russell, and this is behind the scenes information. And Russell asked me why. I said, because I'm not going to go down taking a beating like I did before. I'm going to really fight back. I'm going to even the odds. And I told Russell what I intended to do. And he said, I'll go with you. I said, okay. So then Russell's attorneys came to him and said, the state said that if they could get me to plead guilty to misdemeanor assault, they would let Russell plead guilty to misdemeanor assault, and they would drop all those felonies. And I said no. And then Russell went along with that. And so then they told Russell if he got one more conviction, he'd just have to start doing time because he'd already got convicted on some of the riot thing. And I'd never been convicted of anything. And but they also told him they wouldn't let him do it unless I did. So he asked me and I said, okay. So we both pled guilty to misdemeanor assault, and they dropped the charges down to misdemeanor assault, and they gave court costs $125 and 30 days in jail. And they gave me 30 days suspended sentence, and I had to leave the state. They escorted me out of the state. And when we were in there in front of the judge, I offered to do half of Russell's time, and the judge says they may do that in Oklahoma, but we don't do it here. And so anyway, Russell had to do 30 days, and they escorted me out of the state. And that was what that was about. The Sioux Falls riot was an extension of the Custer riot. And the Custer riot was about a week and a half before the Wounded Knee standoff. Don't cry. Anyway, any more questions? Or did I answer adequately?
Oza has a question for you.
Yeah.
Bonjour. I had a question, man. My first question is, how did you guys get all those Indians to unite for a cause?
How did we get all the Indian people to unite for a cause?
Yeah. Do you see like a difference in how the natives are back then and how they are now, as far as like, how they interact with each other, fight with each other so that they can achieve things, stuff like that?
Yeah. Hang on just a second. Somebody come get this baby.
Sorry.
Hey, can I interject something? I feel like a lot of it also has to do with the drugs and all the stuff that they pushed on the people and how they have diluted them down so much that they're killing the spirit of the people. And that's what they're trying to do, is to kill the spirit within us, within the planet, within everything, and to force whatever agenda they have on everybody. And they're trying now. A lot of people are fighting back and are starting to wake up to what's going on. But, and that's a main reason, that a lot of this needs to come out, and like we need to be advocates for the rightful people and for our future generations to come.
Well, really, what's going on right now is much the same as it was back then until we started fighting back. Before there was demonstrations and people would talk and things like that. But Dennis and Russell and myself and several others, cops would beat people up, they would submit, they would beat on them, kill them, whatever. And we decided that we need to start standing up just like our ancestors did. And that started.
Uh-oh, what happened? I can't hear.
What happened? I'm unmuted.
Think I
Wow.
got lost.
I tried to share the screen and I guess it muted David. I'm sorry, David. I put the picture of you up, all beaten up.
I lost them altogether.
At Sioux Falls. He was at Sioux Falls in that picture, y'all. And that was Dennis and Russell helping him.
Where'd David go?
David's gone.
No, he's still there, but his
Oh, maybe he's reconnecting, I think.
Yeah, he's reconnecting, I guess.
Okay.
Aren't
I
we
sure
all?
hope I didn't do that.
Aren't
with
we
the
all
screen sharing.
reconnecting?
Aw,
Hell yeah.
Hi, Maya.
Okay, I'll give him a call real fast and see, and let him know he needs to reconnect maybe, or the camera's off maybe, or no, he's just disconnected, or he's showing up.
Uh-huh.
Let me see.
Hey, just to kill the dead airspace, let me say this real quick in response to that, what that lady has said. I agree with her that drugs is an enormous problem. We got drugs and then we got gangs that are killing off our youngsters, right? And until we get a group of people that are going to stand up side by side each other, shoulder to shoulder with each other and chase some drug dealers off our reservations, cops ain't going to do it. That's left up to us. I just want to throw that out there for you to think about.
I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, a lot of people
You
are
still
fed
there,
up.
David?
Something's got to change. And
Oh,
now.
remember-
Go ahead,
Oh,
Jojo.
Can I ask? Yeah, I'm going to make a statement. I'd like to say something, just food for thought about, getting people united back then. I think we need to remember back then that what we were fighting for was a little different in the sense that it was so obvious that we were disenfranchised. And I think our young people today, they miss that, and they think that they have rights like everybody else. I think a lot of our young people don't realize that their voices could be so much more powerful, that they have been disenfranchised.
Yes.
We got it back then, because there were signs up that reminded you, no Indians allowed, no Blacks allowed. It's subtle now. And somehow I think we have to communicate that to our young people and to the Indians that have forgotten, or the natives that have forgotten. Excuse me, I do still use Indians a lot. That there is still a need. There is still a void here.
Hey, you trying to
that must be
reconnect?
filled.
Yeah, I got my reconnect person in here now.
Oh, okay.
They're taking all the
Wait.
Dawn, can
spirituality.
you mute yourself and make me a co-host, please?
You are a co-host, right?
No, I'm not.
I did make you a co-host. Where'd you go?
I believe I'm a co-host.
We actually saw a lot of unity. I'm losing my voice because we were just at a student protest here in Denver at North High School. And they actually made a statement. A girl last week at North High School made a powerful statement. She was a 15-year-old. She said, I don't know who I am, but I finally found a teacher who's teaching me to be proud of my ancestors. And we don't have enough teachers that are willing to push that agenda forward because of the white power structure that we experience. When natives come out and we tell a narrative that our ancestors tell us, or we just compare history like the boarding schools, it's often either defended for, or it's considered a lie. So until we all have accountability and righteousness, the youth are going to do it themselves either way. So we just have to play catch up. We have to decide what side of history we're going to stand on, really, because the youth they're already doing it. We see it,
They're badasses.
I have a question.
I think David's here.
I believe so too. I just admitted him.
I have a question for David.
Let's
Why
make
after-
sure he's here.
Okay, why after so long haven't they released Leonard Peltier, knowing that they gathered evidence from 13 different states, and it's all false evidence? Why haven't they released them? I write to the DOJ, I write to the White House, and they never get back to me.
Hoover era leftovers in the DOJ.
I
want
think
Leonard.
David's still connecting on audio, but I think that OSHA could probably answer that question because
Yeah.
we've discussed it. OSHA, do you want to take that question?
Hello, can you hear
Hi,
me?
welcome
David's
back.
here.
I can hear
There
it.
he
Oh, there we go.
Yay.
Okay, so re-ask your question again, please.
Okay,
Mr.
my
Wolf.
question is for you, David. Why after so many years of they found evidence against Leonard Peltier from 13 states, which is false. Why haven't they released them in such a long time? I mean, I write to the DOJ, I write to the White House for his clemency, and they never get back to me.
Well, I think the question you're asking, the answer is has layers. For one thing, our people do 7 times more prison time than other people. Our youth are tried as adults 4 times more than other people. Our women are beaten by non-Indians 10 times more than other people. Our alcoholism rate on reservations is like 35%. The suicide rate is 2 and 3 times the national average. The list goes on and on. They violate our treaties. They want this everything. And Leonard is an example of all of these issues that they caused and put upon us. And he's just an extension of that. And in a lot of ways, he's an example. They want us to look at him and say, if you stand up to us, we'll kill you like Buddy Lamont, Frank Clearwater, Joe Stunts, or we'll keep you in prison like Leonard Peltier. That's the message that they want to give us. That's the one they want us to swallow. They want us to be quiet. They want us to sign over for uranium and lithium and oil and gas and all of that stuff. That's the reality of it. Is they're always after land. They're always after resources. And you
And it's
go ahead. What'd you say?
It doesn't justify the fact that he's innocent, though, and it's so hurtful to know that they still have an innocent man doing so much time, and where's the justice in that?
Well, that's what we say. Where's the justice in that? But where's the justice in the police killing our people more than any other person? Where's the justice in violating the treaties? Where's the justice in them saying that we're merciless savages in their Constitution, and they make our children stand up and pledge allegiance to the same flag that mercilessly killed our people and still is responsible for the deaths? Thousands of children have lost their lives in their boarding schools, and they don't do anything about that. They rant and rave about abortion and stuff, but they don't give a damn about Native children. And it's the same way for Indigenous people all over the world. And in Australia was the same thing. That was a prison colony originally. They dumped all their prisoners over here. They emptied prisons out into America. They sent people wanted to get rich. They come over here and rape the country for the minerals and whatever else they could. And it's just a continuous. And invaders and bullies and abusers will keep doing it until you stand up and make it not worth it. That's the reality of it. You have to make it not worth it. When they think it's not worth keeping Leonard Peltier in prison any longer, they would let him go. And the only times they deal with us is when we have something they want, when we're a source of embarrassment, or they fear us in some way. That's the reality of it.
Annie Shaw, go ahead, you're next.
David, I have a different question. In my opinion, the evidence against the flimsiness of the evidence against Leonard is pretty well known. But in my opinion, one president after another has been intimidated by the FBI. They have known that beginning with J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI said, we have collected information about you that would be embarrassing, and you better do what we want.
Well,
And we don't want Leonard released or his. What is your opinion of that?
Well, I think, what you're saying is true, but I think there's another aspect of it also. The FBI is one of the protections that the president has against assassination, whether he's in office or not. And they don't have to plot an assassination. All they got to do is look the other way. And when a president is looking at the possibility of being assassinated anytime, and part of his protection says, if you let him go, we'll look the other way. Well, to the presidents and to this government, he's just another Indian that's a problem. And just like they consider all of us a problem. They don't want to have to live up to their treaty rights or our treaty rights. They don't want to have to live up to the word that they gave. But to them, Leonard is just another problem, and they don't want to risk their lives or their family because the FBI won't protect them anymore. And they can always point at John Kennedy and said, "You want John Kennedy to happen to you?" I mean, there was a situation there that that's still in controversy about what really happened there. Same way with the 9/11 thing. There's a controversy about what happened there. And everybody's worried about Ukraine. Russia illegally invaded Ukraine. Well, what about Iraq? There was no justification for that. This government does whatever it wants to do. Their thing is they doing, and you just have to make it not worth it. And sometimes making it not worth it is shining a light on them. It's like shining a light on a bunch of cockroaches. They'll start scurrying away if you put a light on them. Or you got to figure out some way that it costs them too much to keep doing what they're doing. I'm starting to sound like a radical, but I'm really not.
Oh, you sound epic, David. Freddie, go ahead.
Freddie, go ahead.
I think Bill had a question. He can't raise his hand. I'll let him go. I'll go after him.
Go ahead, Bill.
Freddie, too kind. I love you. I love you guys. Thanks for being here. David, blessed of God, a beautiful Hebrew name has been bestowed towards you. I've been through a few rebirths, awakenings, a spiritual to head me towards sobriety, thank God. Political, 2014, when I finally looked at JFK a little bit, like you were just starting to mention the insanity around that and the unsolved mystery there, or the unadmitted crimes there. And a couple years later, I had sort of what I call an earth awakening with Native wisdom that I was reading, Native American wisdom. And I'm a descendant of what I call land thieves, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say. People who came from Europe with guns and Bibles, and they justified everything you know. It's a genocide, it's a removal of people. And it's some of the worst crimes ever you could commit, as I've studied. And it's made me sad, and it's made me want to remove myself from this land. And I've started to do so. I started to move down to Mexico as a bridge, and I've looked at going back to Europe. And I'm writing about everything as I go. My question on the AIM movement, Mr. David, and anybody who's still there, Freddie, anyone can still answer. I've had a nice chat with Freddie, I'll say. I'm concerned about using the European diseased tools to then go try to create justice with the Europeans who brought these tools in. I'm speaking of guns, cannons, explosives, these weapons of war that to me have no honor in them. They're all dishonorable to me. I've never seen an honorable use of these loud, nature disturbing weapons. They are, to me, seem anti-native, anti-love of the earth. And I'm studying, and I'm wondering where AIM is, and can AIM see the beauty in a Gandhi, an MLK, the nonviolent movements that have had success over the years, and fully commit to loving this unjust enemy? That's my question.
Well, for one thing, if you don't fight back, they will kill you. That's the reality. There's an old saying in Indian culture that if a man or his family is being attacked by a vicious, killing wild animal, it's his responsibility to stop that animal by any means necessary, even if that animal be a man. And I'll tell you something else. Back during the 18-somethings, there were some Creeks. I think they called themselves the Red Hand. They refused to use guns. They would only use traditional weapons, and they were defeated by guns. And if you've got to get to from point A to point B to give a talk, and it's in New York, if you ride a horse over there, you may never make it. But if you ride a car, which is not traditional, you'll get over there and take care of business. Sometimes you got to use fire to put out a fire. And I'm not going to a gunfight with a bow and arrow. And a lot of your views seem to come from Christianity, which Jesus told his own disciples. He says, let he who has a cloak sell it and buy a sword, which that would be the equivalent to a rifle or a gun nowadays. And, as far as the way Christianity came over here and stuff, they weren't even following their own Christian ethics. Thou shalt not steal, they stole. Thou shalt not kill, they killed. Thou shalt not lie, they lied. Thou shalt not covet, they coveted. Thou shalt not steal, they stole. The list goes on. And their own disciple, their own main teacher, Jesus said, I come to you and know life more abundant. Well, life is being destroyed as we speak. And that's why Leonard.
Uh-oh. Hello?
We
I'd
lost you,
like to
David.
finish.
I
And
feel like
that's
I
why
drank 10
Bob,
Red Bulls.
and
Let's
that's
give
why
him a-
Bob and Leonard and Dino Butler stood up to the FBI on the jumping bulls. And the Indian wars have continued to this day. And resistance has gotten stronger, and in many ways, in different ways. You have way more Native educators now. You have way more Native people who are engaged in education. But that doesn't mean they're not AIM members or that they don't understand that the responsibility, like David said, is to protect Mother Earth and to protect your family. So Bob and Dino and Leonard, Joe Stuntz, all of those young men were doing exactly what they were told to do, protect the land and protect their people. And Bob Robidoux was my husband, so I know that they were of strong mind and strong heart when they were there that day.
Can I say something, please?
Yes, Freddie, go ahead.
So the historical nature between indigenous nations and the United States has always been one of war. We signed a peace treaty with the United States at the Battle of Little Bighorn. And the treaty even stated, on this day, all war between parties shall cease. The United States government desires peace and hereby agrees to substantiate it. And the Lakota desire peace and hereby agree to maintain it. I said that backwards, but the United States
David's
has never
coming back
maintained agreements. And so, you know, sometimes when we're faced with these extermination policies, when they go down to the very root of the government's policies for its people, then we have to decide collectively whether we're going to lay down and accept it and wait for unity to happen, or kick down these doors and peel that layer back of the infected skin so we can all heal together. It's not that difficult. I mean, I guess for people that haven't lived in a continual state of war since they were born, they don't really understand, and that's okay. But anger is righteous, especially now that they're finding our children. You know, that's really what it comes down to: is are we human beings because they're finding our children, or do we still have to love our oppressors?
Thanks, Freddie. That's well spoken.
Yes, thank you, Freddie. David, are you back? He just reconnected and then asked him to turn on his video, so.
I don't
now
see
though.
him. I don't see him on the list. So and I heard somebody pop back off. So I think it dropped him again.
Okay, so does anybody have anything to add while we're waiting for him to come back? Or go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself if you have any comments that you'd like to make.
Okay. I don't know how to do this.
My comment is they knew the colored truck that they were going after when they went looking for I forget his name, but they had a warrant to go on the reservation land at Pine Ridge. They knew that who they were looking for, and yet they found the wrong truck and they started firing their weapons. Why is it that they still, knowing that they did wrong, you know, it doesn't make sense.
Oh, why they're still denying it?
Yeah.
Because to admit that, they would have to admit a lot of things that they done.
And they have for other people, but you know, the thing is it just doesn't make sense why he's still locked up. It doesn't make sense why they haven't, you know, set him free, why they haven't worked on this case, because you know, everybody else who's in court, you know, they get looked at again and during trials and stuff like that. But yet Leonard Peltier, they haven't. They just let him out in jail, you know.
Well, they were tried in 2 different courts, and probably Paulette could tell us a little bit more in detail about this. But they went judge shopping to look for a racist judge, and then they tailored my understanding was they tailored the case against Leonard because they had lost the other case, so they knew they were going to. Probably Paulette would probably be better to speak on this.
When Bob and Dino were acquitted, the FBI cried and said, well, we're going to figure this out. And if you go on the website, you can compare Bob's trial and Leonard's trial, and you will see all the points that Bob and Dino were able to make that they refused to let Leonard make. The other thing, Leonard has had umpteen appeals in which he's been denied, even though they've said
David's
that
back in, guys.
Right, and David can tell you more about the appeals, but they're not going to let I work also with the Jericho movement, and we just got Sundiata Kohli out, who did 49 years and is 84 years old. And he and Leonard were in the same prison in Leavenworth together for 25 years. And so when we visited Leonard, we would see Sundiata. And so it takes forever to convince these people that there is such a thing as a righteous action, and that you know, the FBI was wrong, the FBI lied, the judges went along with it. And so the whole judicial system would have to accept responsibility, and they're not willing to do that yet. And so we have to keep working We have to keep writing letters, and thank you for writing those letters. That's very appreciative, because a lot of people say, oh, I'll write a letter, and they don't. Great, thank you, thank you. And every now
write
and
a
then you just
letter.
write Leonard and tell him, I just sent in my 100th letter for you, and he will be so happy to hear from you.
I write one letter a day for every year Leonard's been incarcerated. If people would commit to that, it would make a difference.
And people, I put in the chat.
David's back, you guys.
Real quickly, if you don't want to write a letter, you can go anytime, 24 hours, 7 days a week to www.whitehouse.gov/contact, and you can email the president.
Right.
And so, and you can also call 202-456-1111, Tuesday through Thursday from 11 to 3. And you can either leave a message, they have that option now, or you can talk to a volunteer. But I think Tanner had a question next. So if you would like to unmute yourself. Welcome back, David.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, David, I talked for you
Okay.
for a few minutes.
Thank you.
David and I and Bob were in Lawrence, Kansas, and all three of us were part of the defense committee there. And so it's been great working with David all these years.
I might add real quickly that he says the same thing about you, Paulette.
Let's let Tanner ask his question, guys.
Yeah. My father actually went to Haskell in Lawrence, Kansas. But David, I had a question for you. You talked a lot about our sovereignty and like how I know there's another comment about how our youth don't see our struggle as something that's happening every day in our faces. We don't have rights as our sovereign nations. But David, what do you think is the best path forward to achieving land back?
I think can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. As an activist or something working on that project, I think number one, you need to get yourself together, learn what the issues are, learn what the answers are, learn how to put it together, or learn how to organize, and work with everybody you can. And a lot of times people attach the word director to different programs, they're director this, director that. But when you're working with volunteers and people, you're not really a director, you're a coordinator. You coordinate the resources available. And you can't really tell somebody what to do. In our culture, chiefs did not have the right to tell anybody what to do. They were chiefs because they led, they didn't direct. And so in working on a land back thing, you have to realize those things and start getting your own personal powers together to work on it, and become familiar with the treaties, become familiar with the arguments. Anything the enemy can think of, they will. If you can think of it, they can think of it. And so your argument's going to have to be strong, and you have to make it not worth it. That's just the reality of it.
Real quickly, I think that Morgan wanted to add something about land bag. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Morgan, and ask your question.
All right, so I don't entirely have a question, but just a comment that I've been doing a little bit of a research on food forest and permaculture, which is something I know that Wikuwa spoke to David about. And I believe this is actually a bit of a bigger step towards land back than some people might realize. We're going to put out some information tomorrow or the next day on the impact that it can have. But I think beyond just simply a neat way to plant, it's actually got some potential for a lot more than just that. I'm actually quite honestly new to not what permaculture is, but to the idea that it's part of the solution. But I have to admit that as an anarchist, I've been concerned with much of the same autonomous issues that Indigenous people are for the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. I feel like this is actually a possible way to bridge some of the gaps. I know it sounds a bit far-fetched, but I think when you read the newsletter, you'll see what we're getting at.
Oh, one of the things about planting trees and stuff, this is more than just American Indian movement. This is a life movement. This is something that's needed all over the world. It's potentially the greatest salvation to the natural earth that we live upon, because the animals can eat it, the birds, it'll work down to the fish.
Yes, sir.
Freddie's got his hand up. Go ahead, Freddie.
Hang on, David's. I think he got dropped again.
Oh,
Yeah, I
no.
think David left.
He froze up. So I think he's just having some internet issues, it looks like.
Yeah. Did we lost David again?
Yeah, he'll reconnect. Oh, I see him there. I'm gonna ask him to turn his video on.
I think he's frozen. It froze up. This is what happened last time. He froze. It looks like he's
Okay.
there, but then he falls
Well,
off.
I guess he lives like in the woods. So
Yeah.
So
I get
there he
that.
is. Okay, unmute yourself, David. There we go.
A point that I was
There we
making.
go. Welcome back.
Anyway, yeah, thank you. Anyway, the planting a food forest thing isn't just a gimmick or anything. It's life. It's a future for this planet. And it's an extension of our traditions. Indigenous people all over the world have planted food forests. It's not anything really new. We're just reasserting it, reaching out to it. And like someone said about the American Indian movement, they said something about us getting back to our culture. Well, our culture actually came and captured us and came to us because it was always there. But when the need arose and our people were put down and young people had nothing to be proud of, and our people were just, the treaties totally ignored and everything, our people started standing up, and our culture embraced us. It was always there for us. And the same way with earth and nature and planting trees and stuff, that's embracing us. It needs us, we need it. And we all need to get involved in that.
Thank you.
Can you hear me or are we breaking up?
I heard you. I agree with you. That's actually very
Can I mention
profound.
something real quick? We lost 40% of our honeybee population last year. That's not a sustainable loss. If we lose our bees, we lose our pollination, we lose our food, period, because of
We've lost about 60% of the birds also.
yeah. So if you can't plant a tree, you can plant echinacea that attracts bees. You can plant sunflowers in toxic soil. They will not only remove the toxins, like say from illegal uranium mining, but they'll feed the birds. Go ahead, Freddie, you're next.
Hihani Washte, David. I have a question. I've been really studying this for a long time, and I think, and I want to know what you think, but I think that they're targeting the bloodlines of the treaty descendants and those that had something to do with the wars. And if we trace the missing children that we're finding and even the missing that we're recovering today, they all come from similar last names and similar regions. And so do you think that part of the awakening is happening because we're finding the missing? And do you think it's connected to the wars that we fought with the United States in the beginning?
Interesting.
You still with us, David?
We
No,
lost
I
him
think we
again.
lost him again.
Oh,
That's an
no.
interesting question though, Freddie.
I actually was researching something. Berkeley did a research on the quantum blood typing, and a friend of mine was checking into getting into the register as well, and they told her that if her name was not on that register and that she didn't have a living relative that was from that register, she could not enter upon it. And what Berkeley said basically was that they're taking the blood quantum typing and they're diluting the race down so much that it kills the race out, kills all the races out. So there's no trace. They're trying to wipe out that part of history. I found stuff that's been rewritten from like back in the 1700s about different events that happened, and it's disgusting what they're doing. And it's
Just one more
It's
Parmesan
true, and it's
side.
also, not only was the boarding schools, which my grandmother and my great grandfather were in, it's also the relocation. My grandmother relocated away from the tribe so that her children wouldn't have to go to boarding school. And as a result of that, I mean, not only did we lose our culture, but we married non-Indians. And so so that's furthering until it's literally paper genocide. And I think Jojo wrote a poem about this that just really touched me. And so I see your hands up if you'd like to go next, Jojo.
Oh, you know what? Mine was way, way, way back up to Dawn. The bee thing, I would like to put her in touch. I don't know if she's in touch with him or not. Who's been working on that issue for years is Chief Harry Kindness. He's an old AIM guy, but he's been working on the bee thing. He takes it very
Can
seriously.
you spell
He's in
his
Las
name,
Vegas.
Jojo?
It's Harry, Harry,
Yeah,
Kindness, just like kindness.
kindness. Okay. Thank you.
And he's been working on it for years. He's very committed.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
David, are you with us? These things really are like seances. I take seances.
Thank you, Jojo. Yeah, I think he probably will have to wait for him to reconnect again. But yeah, I just think like Morgan and Catherine have both done a lot of research into the food forest movement or permaculture. And it's so interesting, like the things that they've shared with me and how that was actually the way that we were as Native Americans prior to colonization. And it's, anybody that wants to to learn about it, we're putting together a newsletter. So just email and be added to our email list at Tate Wikuwa Book Club at gmail.com. And I should be putting that out tomorrow. So it's, we can kind of all get on the same page and know what's going on. And and Leonard thought of this like based from prison. I mean, and that's another thing I just want to point out is this man is sitting in prison and he's thinking about ways to save us and our future generations and our mother. And it's like, so if all of you, when you, anytime that you tweet something, can you tag the president or there's a list, and I'll send it out in the newsletter tomorrow of the people that we should be tagging to bring this attention to. And don't stop, because I mean, right now that clemency petition somewhere in that process. And like, we really need to all come together and just tell them what our wishes are. I mean, this wonderful
Public
person.
pressure will work, intense public pressure.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, because the appeals have been exhausted, this is his only option right now is clemency from President Biden. So just if it only takes a couple minutes just to go to just www.whitehouse.government/contact and just tell him how you feel. I do it a few times a day.
Maybe
John
AIM
Smith,
should
I
offer
think you
to
have
be
a question?
Biden's security detail.
Right to DOJ too. DOJ too.
Yes, and the DOJ. And did you have a question, John Smith? Did
Oh,
you have a
yeah.
question? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to just say a couple things about like why is Leonard Peltier still in jail? That was a question earlier, and I really appreciated everything that everybody has said and questions and stuff. And I just wanted to draw attention to a book, since this is a book club. The title of the book is Big Oil and Their Bankers in the Persian Gulf: 4 Horsemen, 8 Families, and Their Global Network of Terror, Intelligence, and Narcotics. That's the full title of the book. And, when you talk about Joe Biden, he's just a figurehead, and, judicial and legislative and executive, this is just a show government, for well over 100 years, the banking dynasty families have been running this country. And so it's kind of like, who are you going to ask to let them out exactly? We have to be realistic about, the FBI agents, they'll get together, when it's talk of free Peltier, and they'll be like, no, we have to honor our dead FBI agents who maybe were even sacrificed by the FBI. We all know the details and everything. So
Maybe.
it's not really like the agents, these are agents. It's like, who's the master at the top, and so it's good to think about that. But I just really, I planted 1 million trees, I got immense food forests and really appreciate that this is going forward. And I just wanted to ask more specifically about like the logistics or the details of the vision of exactly what is being proposed or thunk upon about like how is this going to go forward, because it's not a brand new idea, and as you're saying very well, it's like, yeah, the native reality was a food forest. It's like we live on the acorns, just like in Europe, people lived on the acorns, like the the oak trees are sacred. They built the churches on them, and so it's like food and forest go hand in hand. So, just what's the more of the fleshing out of the idea of the food forest movement with Leonard Peltier, because Leonard's good name. It's like it could make it go viral or something. And what are some more ideas of exactly what you guys are thinking about how to make this happen?
Well, I just put all this
You
in
have
the
an
chat,
answer?
but
Yeah.
what happened to Pine Ridge, corporate that reservation stood in the way of corporate interests, so they wanted to wipe it out.
Uranium.
Money sets policy in this country. To
That's
get
what it's been
elected,
since the
you've got to get a
inception.
lot of money from a lot of people. Big oil and everybody else, they donate to everybody. So no matter who wins, they're going to own favors. And so they write laws that benefit the people that put the money in their pockets. We need to separate money from politics. No campaign contributions, no campaign spending. Giving them enough airtime to put a platform out there and elect them on their merits.
Okay,
And
real
we'll have
quickly,
people
y'all.
willing to serve the people instead of the corporation.
Right. David's coming back via his phone, so he'll be back in a moment.
Okay, just to answer John Smith's question, Morgan and I are doing research based on Leonard and David's plan for communities, universities, colleges, school systems to start their own community gardening, starting with the trees, then going down to the 7 levels to where you're going down to planting corn with string beans going up the corn vine, the fruits that are on the ground cover to prevent the weeds from growing up. Also, we're doing research and talking about going back to the natural herbs for medicines that the indigenous people were using, that we can do away with all these prescription drugs that these big companies are trying to block everything that we're trying to do for the good of the planet, because they're the reasons the bees are dying, because they're producing all this stuff chemically and not naturally. So Morgan and I are doing research on hoping that this food forest cannot just go from food, but can also go for municipal purposes.
Yeah.
So we're doing a
Could
lot
you
of
guys
research
get
on
that
that.
information to me?
Yes, sure will.
Thank you.
So I think David's back now. He connected via his phone. So are you back, David? I think he's back.
Is he back?
We'll see. Oh, I don't see him now. I guess he's got a bad connection though. But yeah, everything Catherine had said it's amazing. And the more you delve into it, it's I think Tanner can probably speak a little bit because they're doing something like that at his school. Do you want to tell us about that, Tanner?
Oh, sure. Hey, Catherine, thanks for bringing that up, by the way. Just earlier today, I went out and picked I think it's called wormwood plant, and it just helps with antiviral properties because I'm a little bit sick right now. But we have that at United Tribes Technical College in Bismarck, North Dakota. We have a sustainable agriculture program, which is dedicated to growing our traditional foods. And I just did a research project on forest gardens, which is an indigenous concept. I know this is kind of a long worded thing, but like forest gardens had higher bioproductivity in those 7 layers you're talking about, from the forest floor, the shrubs, the canopy, all those layers are all included, and like they had a high biodiversity that were managed by our ancestors. And as soon as the colonizers came in and tore down everything, that biodiversity plummeted. So like our ancestors, like whenever you see videos or like you hear somebody say the land misses American Indians as well, that's very much true. Like the land thrived whenever we managed it with whether it be controlled burns or like intermediate disturbances on the ecosystems, helped me manage the land and took care of it. So I think it's important what you're saying and what you're doing, and you should contact me. Give me your email.
That would be wonderful. Send your information to Kimberly or to Dawn, and they'll get it to me. And
Can you hear
we
me?
can talk back and forth, and we can get information, because I live in South Carolina. I'm on the other side of the world from the West Coast and the Midwest. So it would be wonderful to learn the growth of the plants in your area that we could possibly do here. It would be wonderful.
I put my email in the chat. Thank you.
Welcome back, David. Sarah, I think, has a question for you.
Yes.
Thank you, Tanner.
Yes, I don't have a question. It's more of a statement. There was a post I had put up I think it was Monday or Tuesday, and it was where they had, out there on the West Coast, they had finally snapped to the fact that thousands of years ago, we Native people put the food forest in place out there, and there were still remnants of that existing to this very minute. Okay. And they have decided, I'm not sure if it's California or what. I'm old, I forgot. You know, they're putting us Native people in charge of getting that going again and cleaning up the dead wood and whatnot that caused all these horrible wildfires, and doing controlled burns, because we have the techniques, we have the history, we have the knowledge of it, and we know it a lot better than the Forest Service, because all the Forest Service does is learn by their mistakes. Okay. And we've got quite a few thousand years over in experience. So that is a very viable and doable thing. And I believe that we're going to make ourselves indispensable if they want to keep their lands out there from alternately burning and then washing away in mudslides. So that's
Jojo, did you have something to say? Your hands up.
Yeah, I was just going to add, as far as the food forest, I'm not real clear on the vision of it. I'm a little unclear on that. Maybe somebody could get with me later and explain more of it. But I wanted to comment on one thing. Kimberly, you and I had spoke about it before. When Dennis got sick, we had just started working. We've been working about 6 months on developing his vision was for an entirely indigenous coffee brand. And we're getting ready to go to South America to meet with tribes there to grow it. And here's my point, is he saw an indigenous product line, this coffee line, as providing an economy also for tribes. And with the food forest thing, if there's production, I'm just thinking, it could be an answer to struggling tribal economies. That's what we were working on.
That's a really good point. And I think it's a fantastic idea. Wouldn't that be cool if we could help that dream of Dennis's come true and also help the tribal people? I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's
One
what we
of the
saw. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of the things about sovereignty, if you don't have food sovereignty, you don't have sovereignty. That's the reality. Every tribe should be right now working to have food sovereignty. And if we plant trees, children of the future will have something to eat. People of all races will have a better atmosphere. The animals will thrive better. 60% of all the birds are gone now. And every day, thousands of different species and animals and insects go out of existence. And food forests would help feed those animals and those people and provide a future. It'd make a big difference, because a food tree feeds people. It cleanses the air. It makes air. Makes shade. You could build a house out of it. I mean, it's got everything there. And people right now, there's people who go foraging, but they just have to forage for hopefully to find something. We need to be planting food-bearing trees, and we need to be planting herbs and other plants that bear food throughout the forest. A lot of the like blackberries and other plants that birds eat are becoming extinct because the birds are becoming extinct. The bees are becoming extinct, and food forests would make that difference. Go ahead.
Biodiversity.
Hey, Jojo.
Yes.
The Zapatistas.
Is that what? Sorry?
Indigenous people in South America, the Zapatistas, they have developed their own coffee line and honey, and it's been sold well throughout the United States. Not so much in the last couple of years, but if you check them out, they have developed ways of growing coffee that goes back to their tribe to help support them, as well as to pass information to people that buy their coffee.
Right. We I had done research on it, and yeah, we just wanted to I can't think of the term now. The vertical line of the economy, from planting to producing to marketing. We wanted it to all be indigenous. Yeah. But he got sick then.
Right.
I think that Lolita has a question.
I know what I was going to bring up, that we might, you know, this food forest thing. As soon as Trump shut down the world, I remember sitting on my bed thinking, oh my God. Number one, I should have bought a gun. And number two, I thought, seriously, I did. And I thought, number two, I should have paid attention to my granddaddy, who was Tuscarora farmer, when he was planting all that food in the fields, because my cousins didn't worry about it down here. You know, they're still all farmers, not all of them, because they moved factories and put the Indians to work there in the 70s, because we were all farmers when I was a little girl. But now my generation, they thought that they had moved up when Converse and Campbell Soup came in and put them in front of a machine, you know? So we'd be moving back towards our roots. You're right, David.
I think Bill's had his hand up for a while now.
Thanks. Hi. Really, I don't see David again, which was okay. Freddie's there. I kind of wanted, this is a Leonard Peltier group, and I wanted to ask, I heard some things Freddie was planning with AIM. What's the history of, and then is there anything in the future thought of to protest peacefully there in Florida outside the penitentiary for the release? What's that history there? Has that been a thing? Is that a thing?
They locked Leonard down when that happened, so we don't do that.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Discuss. Thank you.
Sheridan Murphy organized, we've had demonstrations across from the prison and not had Leonard locked down. We did not go on the prison land. It was across the street. We had horses. We had members of the Seminole Nation that came. We had about 75 people there. We did it 3 or 4 times while I was the director, and the guards actually would go by and toot their horns, and we had signs, but we were very respectful. We did not go on the land. We did nothing that would intimidate them or force them to do that. So if you want to know the history, you should get a hold of Sheridan Murphy, who is the president of the board, and he's in St. Petersburg, Florida. And he was the first one that organized a demonstration in front of Coleman. But if you do it right and you don't go down there attempting to be intimidating, but rather you go down for a prayer vigil And people are there. People wore their traditional clothing. They had horses. We didn't have any trouble as long as you respect them, and they then in their turn will respect Leonard. It's when people go down and think they have to be violent that Leonard gets in trouble. But you go down there peacefully, you stand with the sign, people had their feathers. We didn't have any problems. And if you go on the website, there's some great pictures of the demonstrations in front of Coleman.
Thank you so much for that, Paulette, because we had gotten some wrong information.
Yeah, that's what we were told, is don't do that, they'll lock Leonard down. Bill, I put my email address in the chat. I will give you a PO box if you want to email me to get a hold of Sheridan.
Thank you. Thanks. Really helped me. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Paulette.
I guess we lost David again, but does anybody else have any comments or questions they would like to make? Or
yeah, I was actually going to say something.
Go ahead, Sass.
Hello. It's actually going back to what David was saying about foraging. And so I'm not from Georgia. I'm actually Canadian, but I live in Georgia currently. And my child and I used to go, and there was this huge area near us that had tons of blackberry bushes, and we'd go there and pick, and we found them. We were super excited. And a company came in and bought the land, and then they locked it all down. So they actually built some roads through and then locked all the area down. And then they mowed everything down and built a bunch of really shitty houses and townhouses. So they completely ravaged that area, and there's nothing left. It's just all houses and skinny trees. And so even in areas where, you know, there are places you can forage for wild foods, you know, here we have a lot of like wild garlic and stuff like that, so you can still find that, but that's not something you can eat, but you can. But the fact that, I mean, this was massive. It would have taken us, you know, a month to get through the area just to be able to pick stuff, and it was completely decimated. And like I said, they put up like these those metal, you know, they're like locked together, those arms that they lock together at the end of streets. So they actually put the roads through and then locked it down on either end. And then they just went back in and tore everything down. So it was really, really upsetting that, you know, it was the one place where lots of people went and picked stuff there, and then they just mowed it all down. So
we're evil.
Yeah.
I think David may be back. Are you back, David?
I think he is.
Whereabouts in Georgia are you?
I am in Kennesaw, Georgia, where we have a really weird law that they enacted in 1982 that every single person who is a homeowner is obligated to own a gun. I do not own a gun, but
you should get a gun.
I don't want one.
You might need one someday. It's better to have one while you can still get them than to have them not be available when we need them.
I'm not allowed to have one.
Yeah, so living in Georgia, they just passed a law recently that I think anybody can get a gun. You don't need a license. It's kind of it's a bit of a madhouse here, but yeah, so I'm like 35 minutes or so from Atlanta and like 90 minutes from Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I'm sort of northeast of Atlanta. Right. So
real quickly, Morgan, I think you wanted to add something with the research we are doing for the newsletter regarding permaculture. If you'd like to go ahead and unmute. Thank you, Sassy.
Actually, I came across a bit of interesting information. It's on a side project that I'm also researching, in that I'm reading through an Indigenous people's history of the United States. One of the first things that Ms. Dunbar Ortiz points out is that corn and the cultivation of corn is one of the greatest accomplishments in agricultural history. There are only 7 instances of civilizations in the modern known era or whatever, where they were able to use a specific crop and its storage and usage to spur large societies. A couple of those were in China. One of those, of course, is Tigris and Euphrates. 3 of them, however, were here in North and South America. That began largely with the corn, and that's down in so-called Mexico. What she took time to point out that I thought was actually really in keeping with our spirit here is that this agricultural practice was largely guided and shaped by the women. So it was Indigenous women that brought us this
Yes.
bounty.
Matriarchy rise.
Salute that.
Yeah, that's
That's
pretty
all.
interesting. Does anybody else, I'm not sure, is David back? Let's check. No, I don't see him. I thought he was here for a second, but he must have a bad connection again. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add? Just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, I just had a thought while we were talking about this. We could honestly like facilitate a like national prayer walker run ending at his prison, and we could link up like a chain all throughout the nation and just meet there in unity. And it doesn't just have to be Indigenous. At this point, it's worldwide, and that could draw attention to unity too, because we're coming down there with our prayers, and we know that every step we take is a prayer, and we're conscious of prayer that whole time. I think that would collectively draw love and awareness to this situation, because if more of us are acting in a peaceful manner, then I don't know, I think it's going to send a louder message.
I agree. It's
If you do anything like that, please be in touch with Sheridan.
Okay.
And the committee so that it can be coordinated, and that way it will help eliminate problems rather than people just randomly coming and showing up at the prison and not knowing to stay outside of the prison gates and things like that. So be sure you're in contact with the committee, with JoJo, with Sheridan,
Yes.
so it can be coordinated in a good way.
Yes, we'll do that, Paulette. We want to work with the committee because they have a lot of experience with how to organize these things and what's applicable by law and what best benefits Leonard. And so, Joe, did you have a question? Go ahead and unmute yourself. Go
Yes,
ahead.
I believe I am. I muted myself.
Okay, great.
Yeah, as Freddie's saying, it has to be in a peaceful manner, and the sister was saying that too, because you want to draw positive attention, not negative attention. And as a member of the Brown Berets of Northern Aztlán, we're willing to help and also walk with y'all.
Yeah, I hear him now.
Do y'all hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
We can hear
okay.
you, David.
Welcome back,
But-
David.
Let him talk. But
Thank
anyway,
you,
I
Joe.
keep telling Alliance, bye.
Welcome back, David.
Well, thank you. You know, I keep going in and out here on this computer, but you know, one thing that I want to say is that our native way of life, or our indigenous way of life, or traditional way of life is not just a religion or anything. It is the way of life above all others. And when I say above, it's not better or anything like that, but it is the way of life where we are meant to live in a way that the earth can renew itself every spring. You know, we have to live in harmony with the earth. That's the highest technology in the universe. I mean, they can build all the robots they want and all the other things. They cannot match the power of the universe. And our people learn to live within that. And that's important. And that's what Leonard was fighting for. That's why our people are recognized today as Native people, because we still adhere to that concept that we have to live in such a way that the earth can renew itself every spring. And the Christians, they talked one thing, but they did another. And in their own prayer, Lord's Prayer, it says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And I'm sure that they're not fracking over there. They're not polluting the water. They're not digging up the streets of gold. And, you know, Jesus said, I come that you know life more abundantly. You know, the list goes on, you know, and, you know, people need to recognize that. And the Buddhists, all of the major religions have some teaching somewhere that we're supposed to be in harmony with the earth. If you go in and research it, you'll find that. And right now we have to, they have us living here always one purchase away from happiness and anything for the quick fix. And that's not working, you know, and we need to adhere to that. And people who stand up for that need to be protected, and they need to be honored, and they need to be treated good. And Leonard is promoting this food forest thing. That's indigenous, that's traditional, that's us. And that is the answer to the future of this planet that we live on. The planet will be here, but we may not if we don't take care of it. And if you believe there's some afterlife where somebody's going to judge you for what you did, well, if you're not planting food trees for future generations, well, then you really haven't done anything except talk.
Yep.
That's powerful, David. Thank you.
I'm sorry if I sound like a preacher or something.
Oh,
but
no, that was
that's-
powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. That was amazing.
You do sound like a preacher, but that's okay. It's good.
Who had their hand up first?
I believe Monty did, but, and then Anne. And then Joe still has his hand up. I'm not sure if he needed to speak again or not. But.
Monty, go ahead.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I'd like to sort of follow up a little bit there on what David said. He was talking about how the earth rested. You know, a lot of people looked at that pandemic in many ways. The way I looked at the pandemic was it was nothing more than what happened to the genocide of our people when the colonists first got here and introduced the disease.
Yeah.
To me, it was a repeat of history. Okay, there were several things that went on during that pandemic. I looked at it as the creator giving the whole world the opportunity to step back and take time and look at the things that we take for granted in life, the little things in life that we take for granted, being able to move around, be able to go to grocery stores, be able to get toilet paper to clean your butt. A lot of people didn't even know how to do that without that toilet paper. During that pandemic time, I seen the seasons actually get back that I haven't seen in 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
I seen it get back to a time where we had 4 distinct seasons. Mother Earth had time to rest.
That's good right there.
He had time to rest. And all of a sudden, man decided that he wanted to get back into the rat race. And he started going at it full blown again. In less than 1 year's time, we have seen them seasons once again get mixed back up. So we need to be aware of these things. We're supposed to have all these brilliant minds and scientists all over the world that have this knowledge beyond anything that man comprehends, but yet they don't understand you can't cut down a 300-year-old tree and replace it with a 1-year-old sapling.
That's right. That's right.
So for me, as I get older, and I hope the Creator blesses me with many years, I feel like I still have a lot to accomplish, a lot to teach, especially in my nation. I am a Catawba. We were written off and we're supposed to be an extinct tribe, an extinct people, but yeah, we still practice the pottery tradition that has been carbon dated by archaeologists in our area to date back 15,000 years. So it's our duty as indigenous people to this land to stand up and say, look, you know, the real problem is overpopulation. You keep clearing more and more land, you're cutting more and more trees. You're not taking care of Mother Earth like we should, like we're supposed to. Man, you say, you know, oh, well, we communicated with the animals, with Mother Earth, with nature. What happened? We stopped listening. Man has to listen once again to where he will understand what she is telling us. David, I want to thank you. I am currently a prospect to join the 17 Rivers of North Carolina AIM organization. I hope that I will be honored, and I definitely will be humbled if I have that opportunity. Because as a young man in the 70s, when this organization first started, I was in school and I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in with the white crowd because my skin was too dark. I didn't fit in with the black crowd because my skin was too light. But I've seen this organization as a young child, as a teenager, and saying, one day I would like to be a part of that. Fast forward 45 years later, I finally have that opportunity. And I
Would
will
you say something about the one-man army, David?
What's that?
Would you say something about the one-man army?
Well, I think that you're probably referring to when I said, well, backing up just a second, he said something about joining AIM. You don't really join AIM, you become AIM. You learn the issues, you learn your strengths, you develop your strengths, and you become a warrior of one. And then you join with other people who are a warrior of one, and you make a difference. But you know, we have to stand up. That love your enemy, it sounds good, but when your enemy is destroying your children, your family, your world, your earth, nature, and all those things, love isn't part of the equation. The thing is to stop them in whatever way necessary and help replenish the earth in whatever way necessary. If we got to sneak out in the woods in the national forest, the state forest, and plant trees, we'll do it. If we have to plant a tree in the park, we'll do it. If we have to plant one in somebody's front yard, we'll do it. But we need to make a difference. And in doing things, in learning these things, you also develop strengths within yourselves, and you come across other issues and other teachings that you hadn't thought of. And just it's a journey, you know, and life is a journey of challenges. Life isn't a destination. Life is a journey of challenges. And, you know, we need to face that challenge for ourselves, our children, our children's children, future generations. You know, 10,000 years from now, somebody will probably be eating an apple and they'll come upon a little rock that made out of granite or something, might have your name on it, but there'll be a food forest right close by.
Thank you, David. Who's next? Ann or Joe? Which one?
Ann, and then Joe.
I have a question about, this goes back before like the 70s, like going back.
Hello. Hi.
Sorry. I have heard about, you know, the creator shaking the earth. And I heard one of the times was when the eagle landed on the moon, that it caused such a huge earthquake that it rocked the world, basically. Do you know anything about that?
You asking me if I know anything about it?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
I think I was in the 7th grade when they landed on the moon. I know some moon jokes, but that's about it. But you know, they're talking about going to other planets. I don't know why people of another planet or extraterrestrials would even want us even close by, because our bodies are full of bacteria. We have to have bacteria to live, you know, so they may not want to come close to us. Look what happens when people from the Western world go to indigenous people on some island that have not any contact. They get sick and die. Our people, before the Europeans came, we did not have any communicable diseases. That's a fact. And as of 1936, 70% of the world's pharmacopoeia came from our culture. And right now it's like the 23% because they've learned to synthesize the other stuff. And the list goes on and on. Our people, our technology had to do with life. Their technology had to do with death. Their greatest advances always had to do with conquering and creating bombs and guns and all that kind of stuff. You know, the people of the earth need to get back to living in harmony with the earth. That's the reality of it. You know, the answer isn't on the moon. The answer is right here. People need to look for that answer. And it's not hard to find. There's probably more information in the leaf of a tree than there is a leaf of any book that's written.
Quickly, I see that City Arts came here, and I believe that that's CP, and she actually just published the book of Leonard's art, and so if you guys are interested in that, it's very, very nice. I have it, and the proceeds go to help Leonard Peltier's Defense Committee. And thank you, David. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I just noticed that he entered the chat. So
yes,
yeah.
thank you, David.
Joe, you've got your hand up.
Yes. Oh, back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. First off, with the corn, you follow the corn. That trail of the corn is all the way from Nebraska and Iowa all the way down into Mexico. So they were saying that was an original route, and that's why that corn is still there. And then going back to the gardening, and I think us as families, that know how to garden. I heard somebody say, well, the last time I really got to gardening was with my grandfather. Well, fortunately, I still garden, and I try to teach people that. But I think every home should have a garden, and fruit trees is very important. But just whatever that you normally sustain your family with, that you could buy from the grocery stores, could be grown in your backyard if you have the space. And if you don't have the space, think of community gardens. Community gardens are another way, and especially whatever you plant in the community garden, sometimes you're planting seeds of. I've never met a bad gardener. So you're planting seeds with the community. First, it starts with the family, then it goes to the community, and then you'll see different people from all walks of life and all age groups. But it kind of, and then what I was been implementing is the 3 sisters in the community garden as a cause of awareness to those that don't know that way of planting. So that's another thing that's real important. And also, maybe your city doesn't have a community garden. There's so many empty lots. And if we were to rally within our own communities, of course, we live abroad. If you see an empty lot, it's not too hard to sometimes get permission from whoever owns that lot to make use of it and throughout the seasons. So those are just some points that I've been implementing in the community and at home. And I've been gardening for a long time. That's just one thing I love to do. But and then teach the youngsters, because that's just the way, like I said, you'll have all age groups out there. And it's so nice when you bring the youngsters to even see, oh, this is where tomato comes from, or this is where zucchini comes from, or this is where this is how corn's built, and they can play in the cornfields. I mean, all that stuff. And not to mention all the other things you can plant in the gardens. Okay, I talk a lot, but let me, that's what I wanted to
Everybody
say.
should know what it's like to have their hands in the
Thank you,
dirt.
Joe.
Absolutely.
Like, could you expand for the people that don't know what the 3 sisters is? So that for someone that
Yes.
might not know here.
Oh, the 3 sisters is corn, squash, and beans. And they're planted in all together in like a circle. So, and the squash shades the ground to conserve water, and it's usually like in a kind of in a pit. It's not row gardening. It's in a little bit of a pit so that the water can stay there. Especially when we all live in different places. In the Southwest, there's water scarce. But anyway, so and then the corn grows, and then the beans grow up on the stalk of the corn, and the squash shade the ground to keep the moisture that's there. So implement it in the 3 sisters growing. It's been I don't know when it started and actually where it started, but when I do that to implement it into the garden, in the community garden, I implement it where I grow native corn, native squash, and native beans. And that even makes it a little bit more, nicer, because I mean, everybody's trying to get that sweet yellow corn, but when you plant blue corn or blood red corn, then or the various colors of corn, then it becomes like, especially for the kids, that it's more like nowadays it's just a decor around the holidays. But no, that's been implemented for a long time, and they sustain a lot of families for quite some time. And we got to keep that alive. That's all I had to say.
Well said.
Thank you, brother. And I appreciate your words too.
Well, one of the things I'd like to say too, while I'm still on here, till it goes off maybe, is that when you become an activist or take on a project or get involved and try to make a difference, you're going to run into all kinds of problems. You'll have people attacking you. You'll have people making up stories about you that aren't true, and all those kinds of things will happen. And if it was easy, it probably wouldn't need to be done. But if you feel there's a calling, one of the first things you need to do is educate yourself in what you're trying to do, and strengthen yourself in every way, physically, mentally, spiritually, and expect opposition. And anything the enemy can think of or that you can think of, the enemy can think of it. And so you got to make yourself strong, and your spirituality will sustain you when nothing else will. And that's just the reality of it. You'll always be up against somebody, and somebody will come up with some kind of crazy story about you or something, and spread stories and stuff. And, and you can lose family, you can lose your wife, or maybe wife and children, all kinds of things happen, but if you feel there's a calling, that the Creator wants you to make a difference, then that's something you can't get away from. You might try to go do something else, but it won't work. You'll still keep coming back to it. And it's just the way it is. There's certain people that I guess are just chosen to do something or whatever, but it's something you can't hide from, and it'll eat at you if you don't do it. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd
Go
like
ahead,
to,
Anyway, may the forest be with you.
May the forest be with you.
rock on, David.
Thank you.
And actually the yellow corn is the least nutritious of any of the corns.
Yeah.
The side note. Yeah. Go ahead, Sarah.
One thing,
Mom.
yeah, I'll be 72 this year, and I have gardened and farmed for most of it. Almost, ever since I could walk. I have seeds that I don't use GMO, genetically modified, because first of all, they can't reproduce, and that's a dead end right there. Secondly, they don't know what it will do to human body. I mean, sure, their genetic structure has been changed so that they can be sprayed with Roundup and all that malarkey. But I've got seeds here in the apartment that go back hundreds and hundreds of years to the Arikara people, the Arikara beans and squash, like Joe was saying, the three sisters. The only thing I don't have is corn, because my corn crop got wiped out. We had a huge downburst of straight line winds and stuff, and it flattened all of my Navajo blue corn and red corn. But I do have, if anybody's able to have a garden this year and wants to plant some of that, have them get in touch with me through the book club, and I can mail it to them, because it needs to get in the ground for seed also, so it can renew itself again and make more. That way more people will be able to use it. But
me, Mom.
There you go. Down in East LA, you got the corn patch going on. But yeah, that's my point. You've got to use your heritage seeds, your original seeds, not this genetically modified garbage, because that's just what it is. I don't want a plant that's got such wild genes in it that it can withstand glyphosate and Roundup. I don't want to eat something like that. I don't know what it's going to do to me. And I sure as heck wouldn't feed it to a child. And it's not sustainable. It's not going to, it also ruins, the genetically modified stuff ruins the soil. I have a book called Save the Soil. And in my travels over the past 10, 15 years, I've been back up to Wisconsin, to where I'm from. And I was raised up there, and the soil was just black. You could smell it after a rain, and the worms would migrate across the little 1-2 lane roads out in the sticks, and the frogs and all of that. Now they don't do that. The soil is gray. It's just gray. It looks dead. It doesn't smell good. It won't even grow weeds. All the way up through Illinois, which is a long drive, up and through Wisconsin. That's what genetically modified junk does to the soil. It robs it of everything and poisons it. So I have got, even if you plant 3 to 6 bean seeds, you're going to end up with a good bushel of dried beans. You know, it's not like one tomato plant's gonna, if you're lucky, make you about 60 tomatoes, 50, 60 tomatoes. But tomatoes are also, you know, they're from, quote, South America, unquote. So are potatoes. You know, 90% of our food is all from native people. They're from our relatives and our ancestors. So, you know, it gives those kids more energy. But, you know, if anybody wants some of those, if they've got a nice little plot, they want to put just corn, the Three Sisters, the corn, beans, and squash out. It's not too late in the year to do that. Even down here in Tennessee. Yes, Don.
I would love some seeds. I will trade you something for them. And real quick, sunflowers will pull toxins out of the soil.
Yeah.
Plant sunflowers, they will do something to that gray soil and make a good soil again and feed the birds.
In the chat, everyone was saying that we should start a seed swap, and I think that's a great idea.
What?
And Morgan had a comment. So go ahead, Morgan, if you'd like to have the floor.
We were talking about space, and people were concerned about how much space they have available. And I agree, it's a bit of an issue. One of the things we're going to cover in the magazine is that a lot of places recommend about 1/4 of an acre. If you're not familiar, that's about 105 foot square.
Yep.
However, there's no amount that's right or wrong. So that could be a backyard. It could be, someone mentioned community gardening. There are even food forests that have been planted on 12 foot by 12 foot squares, and they are functioning. So it's more, any kind of space you can dedicate to it is a plus. There was one other thing I was going to add, simply that Three Sisters is considered a guild within permaculture. Permaculture is several guilds put together, and that's those 7 layers that I believe someone talked about earlier. So Three Sisters occupies 3 of those layers of those 7. That's it. Thank you. And you guys are all amazing. I love everything everyone's saying. Freddie, I love Denver so much. It's amazing seeing you there.
I was going to say 80% of the food the world eats comes from Native American culture.
Yeah.
And the Irish potato came from over here. That's why they had the Irish famine, because they only had one genetic version of the potato. So when the blight hit, it wiped out all of their potatoes. And potatoes changed the whole political structure of Europe. They had more people. It caused different kinds of structural changes, social changes, political changes coming from our nation. And also, I always want to remember the Iroquois people, because that's where the idea of democracy came from. All over the world now, people embrace democracy. Before, they were all into worshiping some king or something. That was their idea of the highest realm would be a king or something. And over here, there were many Europeans who came here and wrote back home, and their letters said, in America, every man's a king of his own household. As far as plant where you can. You might have to be an outlaw and plant in a national forest or whatever, but let's do it. Instead of letting a policeman chase you across the street, let him chase you through the woods where you just planted a tree. Make a difference. And of course, there are those who'll say that I'm a provocateur. Well, we want to provoke people to do the right thing, to stand up, speak out, make a difference for our children, children's children, future generations. And that's who we are. That's what we are as Native men and women. That's our responsibility, because the beast is upon us, and we have to do what's necessary to protect the future. We are the antibody to the destruction of the earth.
You are the best kind of provocateur.
Hear, hear.
They say there's a new virus sweeping across America, and they've named it Truth. I thought that was beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
it's about
Yeah,
time that the
it's-
truth comes out and that people do stand up for their rights and stand up for what we believe in and stand up for our children and our children's children's children, you know?
Well, right now, the corporations are doing the best they can to control people. They control the food, they control the housing, they control everything. And as long as we are dependent upon their providing us food, they will always control us. So we need to plant gardens, we need to plant.
Hey. No, not again.
Yep.
Well, this has been absolutely epic. I've learned a lot. Thank all of you for contributing.
Yes, and please, again, email the Tate Wikuwa Book Club at gmail.com for to be part of the newsletter and also to contribute to it if there's something you'd like to add to it. And I just wanted to say, if you go to, speaking of Leonard, this is his vision, is to get us all to do something for Mother Earth. And again, he's locked in prison, but he cares about each of us, and just keep, it's gmail.com, Deborah. And just, if we can do this for him, it's amazing, but just don't forget to write the letters, call 202-456-1111. And also there's prints available of his art. Oh, and I have something good to tell you. He sent me an email today, and for the first time in 3 years, the art room is open. So he was able to go into the art room, and that's pretty exciting. So he gets to, if you haven't seen his art, go to www.leonardpeltiermatters.com, and all the proceeds from the prints there go to help his defense committee. But yeah, thank you all for coming. It's been such a pleasure. And thank you, David.
I'm going to take a screenshot to send to Leonard.
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh no, Dawn. And again, his art book is out and through City Arts, who I see they're here. Hi, CP. Hi. Thank you for coming. And all the proceeds there go also to help his defense committee, and hashtag free Leonard Peltier, and just send those emails. And thank you all for coming. It was such a pleasure to have you all here.
Let's all spread the truth, guys.
Thank you.
The more people know about this, the better Leonard's chances are of actually making it out of there.
And I was going to say that even, we do flip flop back and forth. We try to have a speaker and then we talk about the book in the following week, but you don't have to have read the book to join the conversations that we have on those weeks. So if you guys want to join, next week, although that is a book, more of a book club week, where we're talking about chapters, we go way off topic, not off topic, but we go outside of the conversation of the book itself.
Go to the moon.
So a lot of the
Can you hear me?
conversations.
Can you hear me?
David is back. You want to say anything in closing, David?
Yeah, I'd like to say, about the book is about people who stood up and spoke out. The book is about people who didn't really follow a book. They followed a way of life, and speaking up and making a difference is what the book is about. So we've been following the book, just not page by page or line by line, but that's what the book is about.
Yeah, man.
Right on.
We're
And
following
it's
the
been an
book
honor to
between
be
the
here with
lines.
you, and I want to thank you.
I would like
David.
to thank you for being one of the bravest men amongst all of the AIM people that fought through all of the Wounded Knee and all the hatred and horrific acts that were done against y'all during this crazy government that still runs us. But you are one of the bravest men. Thank you.
Truly, the only man I admire more than you, David, is Leonard. Thank you.
Thank you,
Feel it,
David.
So have a good
It's
evening.
been a rare treat. Thank
Keep
you
your top
so
side
much.
up, your powder dry, and don't let them drag you down.
Right, feel it, David.
All right.
Honestly, hello, and thank you to everybody here tonight.
Peace.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Night, y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
God bless y'all.
guys. See you
Thanks,
next
John.
week.
Next week, everyone. Same
Yes,
time.
Solidarity.
Love y'all.
Go, Cha.
I
My
love
book is
you.
coming.
May the forest be with you.
May the forest be with you.
May the forest be with you.
Namaste.